Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax, and today is episode 100 of Classes of Mail. I never thought it would last this long. I never thought that I would get all the way to episode 100. Like, I thought for sure I'd run out of things to talk about. But guys, there's no end in sight. The podcast is going to keep going, and I could not be more honored for this special episode to have this special guest with me, Mr. James Henry, Vice President of the NALC, and more importantly, candidate for President of the NALC. Mr. Henry, say hello to my listeners.
Hello, everyone. It is
Ah,
truly an honor, Alan, to be here. And to be on your 100th episode is truly a remarkable feat for you. Congratulations to you. And I'm glad to be the one that's representing on the 100th episode.
fantastic. So, for part of this episode, I want my listeners to get to know you a little better. And frankly, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So,
Yes,
I
sir.
know early on you joined the Marine Corps, and I've known my share of Marines, and the Marines really shape the people who join, especially who've been in for a while. So, tell me a little bit about your experience in the Corps, why you joined the Corps, and how that led to the leader that you are today.
Well, what pretty much led to me joining the Marine Corps, earlier on in my life, I grew up in Los Angeles. Um, I was referred to as, more often than not, a lot of faith-based individuals as a PK, a preacher's kid. My father's a pastor, and his father was a minister, and he had served in World War II in the Army. I had several uncles that were both in the Marine Corps, the Army, and also in the Navy. So being of service to your country is something that was instilled in me from birth, essentially, notwithstanding the fact that I have a deep conviction that we're responsible for being in service to one another. And a way of doing that is being able to serve your country as well. And the Marine Corps stood out to me, one, because of the principles that were that I was introduced to, even more so through the actions of my family, and even speaking to the recruiters about how the Marine Corps emphasizes leadership, and some of the leadership traits is about integrity, dependability, justice,
Mm.
judgment, accountability, and loyalty. All of those things appeal to me, and I find that it was natural for me to gravitate towards the Marine Corps.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when people talk about James Henry, when I ask people about you or when you come up in conversation, the first word that people always use is integrity. That James
Yes.
Henry does what he says he's going to do and that James Henry is reliable. And I'll tell you in my own experience, all the way to the first phone call that I got from you, if you said you're going to do something, you do it. And today we have this interview scheduled at noon. And man, Johnny on the spot, you were there at noon. And it's so nice to be able to count on, even just little things. There's, the little things that are a reflection of the big things. And you definitely seem to have that integrity. So now how did that experience in the Marine Corps prepare you for what you would encounter at the post office?
Well, one of the things here, when you're talking about dependability, you may have heard me say, and anyone that's been involved in my training sessions or have been around me at any length of time have heard me say that one of my best and most important sayings in my life is that the best ability is dependability. It does not matter, Alan, how smart you are. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you cannot be relied upon, it doesn't mean anything. And that is something that the Marine Corps, in addition to my upbringing, because out of my family, I'm the eldest out of four siblings. My mother and father required me when I was in elementary to be the first at the front gate of the school. I was responsible for waiting on my siblings and making sure that all of us were accounted for and had to walk home together. And we didn't have the daycares like you have now. And my parents had to work. I grew up in South Central LA, and as such, I had to go home and I had to make sure that sometime dinner was started and things of that nature. So that upbringing was a natural fit for me going into the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps preaches accountability, not just for your own actions, but for one another. And that
That's
is
a
something that's important.
right. That's a beautiful thing, and that whole mentality of taking care of your siblings, it carries over into the union, where we call each other brother and sister, but we really should be looking out for each other as family.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. So now I want to talk a little bit about the post office. So you get in the post office, and people have probably heard elsewhere about you getting involved with the union fairly early on. But tell us a little bit about some of the positions that you've held at the post office, that like how you went from just being a carrier to now vice president.
All right, I definitely will do that. One of the things that's important here is that I went straight from my active duty service in the Marine Corps, my first stint of active duty service, directly into the post office. And I was very, very proud to be hired on at the post office, like I was proud to be a Marine, to the extent that earlier on in my career, I would even press my uniform shirt with military creases because I took
Nice.
pride in everything that I did. I would shine my shoes just like I would shine my boots in the Marine Corps. And the thing is, to the extent that one of the carriers there used to call me Patton because yeah, I represented the military as much. But nevertheless, um, I was fortunate to get hired on in Pomona, California, and I was a member of Branch 1100. And as you perhaps know, and a lot of members throughout the country are aware, that Branch 1100 is the largest branch in the country.
Hmm.
At its peak was approximately maybe 8,000 letter carriers. Well, I got hired on in February of '88. And at the very beginning of my career, within 6 months of being hired, I was approached by Charlie Miller, who was then the vice president and ultimately ascended to being the president of the union, had approached me and recruited me into becoming a shop steward. And I became a shop steward. And as a result of being a shop steward, I was introduced to going to union meetings. In the
Hmm.
Marine Corps, it's not a democracy in the Marine Corps, but
Right.
but I found myself having that sense of esprit de corps, that camaraderie that through the union that was likened to that of the Marine Corps, and it definitely was something that I gravitated towards and was very, very proud to be a part of. And like I said, and as a part of being a member of Branch 1100, I had great reverence for the officers and the other stewards that was there at the time. As a member as well, we were responsible as shop stewards of being involved, not
Right.
just being a steward on the floor, but participating in meetings and going to rallies, phone banking, and pretty much all the things that unions are known for. And because of my consistent activity and involvement, it exposed me to greater opportunities and was given the ability to move up in the union. So I became shop steward, then I became an area steward. Not only an area steward, I ultimately ended up becoming a member of the executive board, the chairman of the executive board of Branch 1100, and then a vice president. And prior to becoming the vice president, I had initially started off as being a Step B member, the DRT
Hmm.
member,
Right.
in its infancy when it was initially started, when it was just a pilot program. So I moved up from being through the ranks and then ultimately became a regional administrative assistant, and then ultimately in May of '22 was appointed the national vice president by then uh, now President Emeritus Fred Rolando.
Wow. Wow. What a rise. So I can only imagine how great it must have been to learn from Charlie Miller. Thanks to my connection to the CLC, I've gotten to speak with Charlie Miller a couple of times, and the guy is legitimately brilliant.
He is.
Yep. Yeah, what an opportunity. And then to rise through the ranks, to have a union with that kind of resources where, you can get that full support, where you have obviously these very strong organizers. One of the things that you mentioned was that you were involved in organizing activities with phone banking and things like that. And part of your platform in running for president is that you're going to have an organizing director. Talk about that position and what you'll do to like garner public support.
Well, one of the things that I believe is exceedingly important for the union is that everyone not only be involved, but feel that they're a part of the union. The union is not just there for the sake of protecting someone from discipline. It is to get you from hire date to retirement date. It is to uh, make sure that the public is aware that we are in service to them as we are in service to each other. And that, by way of an organizer, is one end to that means of being able to uh, market what the union is all about bringing each other together. Like I told you
Mhm.
also on the onset about that camaraderie
Mhm.
that I shared in the Marine Corps, making sure that everyone feels that same feeling. Because one of the issues that I have found in the union is apathy sometimes, and members feeling disaffected because they don't have a sense of belonging. And it's important to be able to organize and be able to uh, point out and teach those the principles and the importance of the union and the things that are important to us that will ensure that our members are able to support those that support us, meaning into the legislative, to be able to support those and have a job that we can put clothes on our back, put food on the
Mhm.
table, and put a roof over our head, get our children through school, and having an organizer, people that are dedicated and focused on bringing all of those elements together is something that I think is of major importance.
Yeah, one of the words that you used in there, disaffected, it describes too many of our union members today, where people feel like they've been left behind. They feel like they've been forgotten, and it feels like there's very little being done from the top down to get carriers involved and to keep them informed. So another plank in your platform is that there's going to be greater outreach to the carriers, that you'll have more lines of
Outright.
communication open. Talk about some of those.
Yes, one of those ways of being able to reach the uh, rank and file is being able to make it available for those to become more educated. And you're talking about Planks, one of the uh, platforms we spoke about creating or recreating the director of education. So when you start talking about it, when you have a combination of a director of education, not only with regards to the contractual provisions, but like I said, educating our members so knowledge is power, and having the organizers, those uh, individuals, and bringing others on in support element to reach out to the field is exceedingly important. When you talk about disaffected, it is no more reflected, or I guess maybe I should say more aptly, is that it is reflected in the low turnout in the elections that we had in 22. We had
Absolutely.
we had only 15% approximately of 200 plus thousand Medicares that voted. That tells you that they don't feel a part of it or that I don't matter. And one of the
Mhm.
things that I intend to ensure is that from an office of 2 city letter carriers to an office that may have 200 plus letter carriers in it, that everybody's important. No one should get less service or get any um, pushback on their concerns because of where you're from. Because what I've often said, what precedes every branch number is the acronym of NALC, the
Mhm.
National Association of Letter Carriers. That means we are one. We many branches, but we one trunk. And it's
Mhm.
exceedingly important that everybody understands that. And why it's important that also I feel that I can play a role in is having individuals that are like minded, understanding that principles should supersede any politics. You should do what's right for no other reason than because it's the right thing to do, not because there's some type of accolades that you may have or some job that you may be aspiring to. Those things are going to take care of themselves. But our first and foremost responsibility is to the letter carrier, to one another, full stop.
That is absolutely beautiful, and of course, you're 100% right about that. And that comes from that looking out for your fellow carriers. Education is such a big part of that, and I know this all came out
Yes.
of we were talking about the director of education position. When a carrier is educated, they are empowered. You use that expression from Schoolhouse Rock, knowledge is power. I'm actually wearing my Schoolhouse Rock knowledge is power t-shirt right now for this interview. But it's
Yeah.
absolutely true. Carriers need there is a demand out there for education, and not just steward training and contractual education, but also education just about how to do the job better and how to succeed as a carrier. And that's why podcasts like Corey's, Ada Arbitration, podcasts like mine have found an audience, because right now it's a need that's not being fulfilled.
Well, let me share with you, like I said, coming from branch 1100, and I'm sure there's other branches that do an absolute phenomenal job in educating and placing emphasis on education. But I can speak from firsthand experience from where I come from. And the one thing that was not overlooked is the training and the development and the cultivating of the activists from a shop steward all the way up through the presidency. We as shop stewards were responsible and as officers responsible for putting together training classes that dealt with an array of, of subjects in the articles, or and also as it relates to negotiating, being involved in local memorandum of understanding negotiations and learning how that go, being involved with knowing not just the articles like I was indicating, but how to interact with management, understanding what's important, because it does not matter, like I said, how talented and gifted you are if you cannot be relied upon. But I often say as well that our job, Alan, is part skill, part strategy. It's not just enough to know what to do, but how to do your job. And this is why this is important about moving forward, of not just knowing what to do, but how to do it. How do the union get others involved? How do the union make sure that their members are informed and educated?
Mhm.
How do the union get the legislation that is going to protect letter carriers out on the street when they are assaulted? How do we get education out there that place the emphasis on that? Hey, this job is one fraught with all kind of issues from both internally and externally, and that
Mhm.
letter carriers are deserving to be industry leaders in pay, wages, and benefits. Not pay, wages, benefits, and working conditions, that is.
Mhm. Absolutely. That preacher background is starting to come out a little bit, and I am here for it. I love your passion. I love the leadership. So before I interviewed you a couple days ago, I interviewed C. Moline. That interview hasn't aired yet, but she is one of the leaders in Build a Fighting NALC, and she
Yes,
spoke
sir.
at the convention. And in our pre-interview, I had talked to her about how well organized the NALC is. That we have, like, you probably know the exact number, but we're like 93, 95% organized, something like that.
Yes, sir.
And she had pushed back on that, and she says, it's great to have all these people paying their dues and to be part of the union, but we're not fully organized until we have people in small branches who feel represented. If you have a station that only has 10 carriers in it and there's no union steward and management's running wild, are they really organized?
Well, yes, they are, I would say. However,
Yep.
you heard me say, even before you brought
Hmm.
Ms. Marlene up, that I am a huge proponent of ensuring that, what did I say, a station that has two carriers to 200 plus, that they
Exactly.
all should get the same level of representation. So even before you said that, you understand that that is something that I recognize and that I believe should occur, because we should have principle over politics. Those
Right.
individuals in those smaller offices, they
Yep.
don't have prorated dues.
That's right.
They pay the same amount of dues that everyone else. They are deserving of the same level of representation. And then you're talking about, when I'm saying here, my faith informs how I feel and
Hmm.
how I move in life. I'm not trying to be preachy, but like I said, it is a part of me as it relates to my faith. The Bible talks about, when Jesus asked, do the shepherd leave the 99 for the one that's lost, the one
Hmm.
sheep that's lost? Well, because they're in need, that's what you should do. Whoever is in need. Because I tell you, you can have someone in an office that's made payments to the union, been involved, been a member of the union for 30 years and may have never had any issue. And at one time something come up, we should be giving them all the air support that they deserve and need. And I'm talking about from a 1 day member
Hmm.
to a 50-year member. Once you family, right?
You're
Once
damn
you're
right.
part of us, you're it. And that's why in the Marine Corps we don't ever say ex-Marine. We say
Mm.
former Marine if you
Right.
have for contract, because once you in, you in.
Yeah, and nobody gets left behind, and everybody looks out for each other. We're all in this together.
No doubt.
Yep. It's a beautiful thing to hear. And because of your integrity, I know that you're going to stand behind that. And that kind of leadership comes from the top down. Changing the culture. I know you're as aware of it as anybody, there is a good old boy network within the NALC. And there are people so when I was at the CLC planning meeting in Las Vegas, is when I first got to meet you. And at one point, we were just all kind of having conversation, and we kind of went around the room, and people told their stories about being the victims of retaliation. And, oh, I ran for president in my branch, and then when I lost, I got kicked out of everything. Or a new business agent came in and they just cleaned house. So as the leader of the union, what do you think can be done to help change that culture and to embrace everybody who wants to make the NALC a better place to be a member?
Let me share this with you. My father used to always say that if you want to know what's going on in a house, look at what the children are doing, because they're only going to reflect what they are being taught and see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have this going on around, it's no further, you look no further than, like you said, at the top. What I believe needs to happen and what I bring is that leadership by example. Democracy isn't just when you agree with it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Democracy is that which is the will of the people. And everybody, we all live by a set of rules. We all have this obligation to exercise our God given rights, our contractual rights. And if anyone that endeavors to seek a higher position or a different position in the NLC, if anyone desires to support a particular issue one way or the other? They should. Why? Because what does real leaders do? Real leaders stand up for what they believe in. And I am a firm believer, Alan, that if you do not stand up for what is right, you are as wrong as the wrong itself.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you that, I mean that with all my heart. If that was not the case, I would not be running for the national president now. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that I took lightly. The reality of it is that we collectively, as a union, have to be on one accord. And that, again, leadership by example. You know, I come from Region 1. And when I got appointed as the national vice president, that vacated my RAA position there in Region 1.
Right.
And one of the most dutiful RAAs that not only Region 1 had, but the NALC had. Very talented, very dedicated. And how do I know this? And I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with Calvin Brookins for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
close up there in Region 1. He lived over an hour and a half away. He was at work each morning on time. He was a lot of times one of the last ones to leave in the evening. And because he decided to exercise his rights and run for the national business agent position that was vacant and open, and no one had ever asked him to support another candidate.
Mm-hmm.
It was a vacant open position. And unfortunately, he got fired for doing what he believed was right. And
Yeah.
that kind of activity, in my view, is is something that should not be occurring in the NALC. It just should not.
Yeah. I
So,
agree with you.
so,
Yep.
so there are those, and there are actions that a lot often that will reek of personal preservation or retaliation. But what we can do is have principle over politics, be principle based, lead by example, and support one another.
All right. So
And
with
that's where
that,
integrity come into play.
100%. And that leads perfectly into the next thing I want to talk about. I know we're running up against our time here. So, in terms of accountability, for my listeners, this is one of the ways that they can tell that you intend to be accountable and transparent, because in your platform for president, you have planks in there that talk about your reporting requirements and people who you're going to be accountable to, and these are things that we expect of our president. And the fact that you put those in your own platform tells me that you want those rules to apply to you, that you don't intend to be above the rules. You intend to hold yourself accountable. So talk about some of those planks that you have that will bring that transparency and accountability to the office of president.
How can you have the moral authority to ask anyone to do something if you're not doing it yourself? All
Absolutely.
right, straight up. And the reality of it is here is that I put my pants on one leg at a time. I'm not like everyone else. I am no better. The president of the organization is no better than anyone else, no better than the first day CCA out there. We're just blessed and fortunate to be in a position of influence to be able to help. But the fact of the matter is that we have rules and regulations, and we have ethics that we are responsible to follow, and we are accountable to the membership. Why are we accountable? Because when you are elected, people place their trust in you to, one, look out for their best interests and make them your chief concern, and then two, to make sure that everything and everyone is treated fairly. Period.
Absolutely.
When you cover those two bases, all the rest of it takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's it. You nailed it. All right. So the last thing before we get out of here, obviously, I am an ardent supporter of Mr. James Henry for president, and I am a supporter of the concerned letter carriers. So on a personal level, I have donated to your campaign. I know it's expensive to run a national campaign. I mean, the mailers alone run into the six figures just to send a piece of mail to the people in our union. So, where can people go? There's a two-part question. First, where can people go if they want to contribute financially to the CLC? And then the second part is for people who don't necessarily have the money to spare, how can they still help support the CLC on a non-financial level?
Well, to your first part of your question, we have a website, the concernledcarriers.com. You can sign on to that website, and as you scroll down on the home page, there are tabs for donation. You can send check or money order, and it denotes the address and the care of where the checks and money orders to be sent. But also, you can donate by PayPal, by Venmo, and by Cash App. And it's important that donations occur because if we won't change, as you indicated, that unfortunately it takes a lot of money. I mean, approximately there's over 250,000 letter carriers, and as such, even to do one mailing at 73 cents a mailing, we're talking about over $200,000 plus printing and so on. So we
Wow.
would need approximately about $500,000 to be able to run. So every bit counts. For those that may not have the financial resources. And we would take anywhere. I don't care if someone donates 50 cents to
Right.
$500 or more. Whatever we can get in this cumulative is going to be helpful and beneficial. But for those that do not have it right now, your word of mouth, your uh, being able to support the CLC, and as you say, rocking your t-shirt, rock our logo with the lion 2026 are coming. Those type of things will be exceedingly important about going on to our webpage, following us on Facebook, following us on Instagram, and on X/Twitter. We have all of those platforms that you can go on, and you share with your friends, and everyone sign up, 5 people or more. Get the word out, because here's the thing. I had said this, Alan, about
Mhm.
how letter carriers definitely should be, rightfully so, should be the industry leaders in wages, benefits, and working conditions. As you know, our letter carriers are not being paid what they deserve, and particularly the CCAs. And let's start by them becoming career workforce. And until that day
Yep.
occur, they need to earn a living wage. Without a doubt, they need to earn a living wage, because right now they can't afford, or a lot of our members can't afford to pay the 5% contribution to their thrift savings plans. They can't afford to have the medical and all of those other benefits that are available but are virtually non-existent, because having to choose between paying your benefits and paying your daily obligations and responsibilities. So by getting in, the CLC is about the rank and file. We're looking out for your needs and about bringing change, so those things can be emphasized later on. But definitely go on the Facebook, Twitter, /X, the uh, web page, and sign up as an endorser, and
Mhm.
you will receive emails and things of that nature, and we'll be able to continue to communicate, and hopefully in 2026 make a real change for accountability and integrity, and the look and making sure that the letter carrier are our chief concern.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. You certainly have my vote, and I could not think of a better guest to come on episode 100. I am so honored to have you here today, and thank you for taking the time to talk to my listeners. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It has been my honor and my privilege to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll catch you next time.